Hello everyone, the Army of Otters here, and welcome back to the Unexplored Mojave. Today we're going to be checking out Novac, and this video has been a long time coming because Novac is one of the most important cities in Fallout New Vegas. Now, Novac does not actually exist in real life, despite many other towns in Fallout New Vegas actually existing in real life, such as Goodsprings, Searchlight, and obviously Las Vegas itself. This town is completely fictional. In fact, if you look at the location in real life, you'll see that there's nothing out here but desert. It's just the highway out here and a road to the right that leads towards Nelson. Which, of course, Nelson is actually in Fallout New Vegas, which is another place we still haven't gotten to. However, when I was looking at the location on Google Maps, I found a rather humorous comment that said, "Guys, I found Novac, and he's not wrong. This is where Novac would be located if the town existed in real life." However, the solar plant, Helios 1, does exist in real life. However, it's simply called Copper Mountain Solar, not nearly as catchy as Helios 1. Perhaps whoever owns that should consider a name change. And then you might be wondering, well, where does Novac get its name from? And the answer is just staring you right in the face. The Dino Dee-Iite Motel has a no vacancy sign on it. However, only half of the sign is lit up, and it says Novac. So obviously, the original settlers of Novac just named it after the sign, or after the portion that was working. We'd have no indication as to what the original name for Novac was, but we can assume maybe it had something to do with Copper Mountain, or perhaps El Dorado. And real quick, some interesting facts about Novac. So according to Joshua Sawyer, Novac was actually the first location to be developed for the game, and the reason for that was they wanted to build tutorials around areas that could not be destroyed in-game. And we can definitely see that with the quests that are available in Novac. Obviously, it's a bit of a step up from Goodsprings, whereas Goodsprings holds your hand a bit more, and no doubt the quests are really good and really well developed. In Novac, there's less hand-holding, and you have more options on how to deal with your problems. Novac might be my favorite town in Fallout New Vegas just because I love the characters and I love the quest associated with this location. And if you played Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, you might notice that the soundtrack that is used here, Explore 07, is one of the few soundtracks that was used in both Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. I don't know if it's because this was the first area developed in New Vegas, so they just threw in a soundtrack from Fallout 3, or they chose that soundtrack deliberately. Either way, I think it was a great choice. And the last interesting fact is that Novac does have some real-world connections. The first one being that the thermometer being held by the Dinky the T-Rex statue is similar in appearance to the world's tallest thermometer located in Baker, California. This thermometer is here to commemorate the hottest temperature ever recorded on Earth of 134 degrees Fahrenheit or 57 degrees Celsius, measured in 1913. The in-game thermometer is described as the world's second largest thermometer, so not quite as tall as the one in Baker, California. Also, the in-game Dinky the T-Rex statue closely resembles the real-world T-Rex statue, Tex the T-Rex, located at Shangri-La Prehistoric Park and Museum in Henderson, Nevada. But with that being said, Dinky actually more closely resembles two large biomorphic buildings designed and constructed by sculptor Claude K. Bell in Cabazon, California. And Dinky's name is a reference to Denny, although the real-world Denny is a Brontosaurus as opposed to a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And finally, jumping into it, while I doubt you need it, here is the location of Novac on the world map, but almost every player that plays New Vegas will venture here at some point. Now, in the center of town, we have this tent, which kind of acts as a dining or mess hall. Novac settlers will occasionally go here and get some food. Sometimes Dr. Ada Straus will be here, and sometimes she'll be by the railroad. If you need medical supplies or you need to heal up, you can just go over and talk to her, and she'll help you out for some caps. Now, behind Straus, next to this railroad, we can find a house with a Brahmin pin. This starts one of my favorite unmarked quests in New Vegas called the Screams of Brahmin. If we go inside and we talk to Dusty McBride, he'll tell us that his Brahmin have been being killed. And you can tell Dusty that we will look into it. Now, the attacks are happening at night, so if you wait until nighttime and you come out behind the house, on the other side of the tracks, you can see a Nightkin, who will be leveled depending on your level, hiding behind this rock. He will be using a stealth boy, but you can still easily spot him. For me, with a sneak attack and from the anti-material rifle, it was pretty easy. And once you loot him, you can find one of my favorite notes in the game called the Screams of Brahmin, which reads, "Most of what is recorded here is a mess of incomprehensible, psychotic gibberish. It seems to express a general frustration towards a set of Brahmin who are allegedly keeping the author awake at night by screaming inside his head whenever he closes his eyes." This is without a doubt one of my most favorite notes that you can find in Fallout New Vegas, just because it's so out there, it's pretty funny, and it's everything that Fallout should be. And upon going back to Dusty to tell him about what transpired the night before, he will reward the player with 75 caps, along with access to his refrigerator, which contains Brahmin steaks. Not half a bad deal, if you ask me. And I just wanted to mention that you will often see traveling merchants coming through Novac. Obviously, it makes sense. It's a safe trade route because there's no powder gangers and there's no death claws like you have in Quarry Junction or out west near Good Springs with the powder gangers. And these guys often sell a lot of ammunition and stuff, so it's a good way to stock up or get some weapons. And then heading over to the Dino Dee-Iite Motel, we can actually rent a room here that will act as a house for the player character. Jeannie May will sell the character a room for 100 caps, or if you have an accepted or higher reputation within Novac, you actually just get the hotel room for free. Now, the room in Novac, in my opinion, is one of the best housing areas in the game for the player. It's easy to access, and there's no loading screens to get to it, unlike the Strip. Also, if you have killed Jeannie May in a certain quest we'll talk about later, Cliff Briscoe will give you the room key for your room. And there's some other notable guests within the motel. One of them is Bruce Isaac, who is a part of the quest talent pool. He is a singer, and in his room there's an interesting thing. There is a poster for the Museum of Technology. The Museum of Technology is in Washington, D.C., and is featured in Fallout 3. And then next door we can find Daisy Whitman, who is a former Enclave pilot, and she is a part of Arcade Gannon's questline. And also, if you talk to her, she will mention that her vertibird crashed near Klamath. This is a reference to Fallout 2, where the player can find a crashed vertibird in Klamath Canyon. So a pretty cool reference to Fallout 2. Outside of the motel is a very old parking lot that has obviously not been used in some time. Also, we have some crashed buses and then some chain link to act as fencing or a barrier. Inside of these bungalows, we can find Ranger Andy, who can teach the player a unique melee move, and is also associated with the quest Old School Ghoul, or just Raoul's questline. Now, this part can be a little bit glitched in that quest. I do have a guide for it on my channel if you are curious about Raoul's questline. Inside of the dinosaur, we can find Cliff Briscoe, who will take over ownership of the motel once you kill Jeannie May. And he has a pretty great inventory of weapons like that gun. Then up top on the dinosaur's mouth, we can find Manny Vargas. Now, Manny and Boone act as snipers or watchmen for the town itself and kind of act as its protector or security. However, Manny makes mention that if there were ever a Legion attack, they would get wiped and the town would be destroyed. Across the street from the motel, we can find an old Poseidon Gas Station. Interestingly, at this gas station, there are several Repcon rocket models. Now, I don't know if these are actual rockets or if they were just decoration used in the pre-war. Either way, it's a pretty cool reference because the Repcon test site is really close to Novac. Also, interestingly, taking anything from the gas station is considered stealing and will result in negative karma, even though it seems like nobody owns it. Then, down below the gas station, we can find a deserted parking lot, along with a deserted house. Nobody appears to live down here for a long time. Then if we head on over, we can find a crashed bus that is since broken in half, but there is nothing inside of the bus, clearly just aesthetic and decoration. Heading on over to the opposite side of Novac, we can find a partially burnt down house, and there's 2 graves next to the house. We can assume that the 2 graves are people who died in a tragic fire. Now, the citizens of Novac make no mention of this house or a fire, so we're just left with the storytelling from the environment. And behind the burnt down house, we can find just a normal house that probably belongs to a Novac settler, and then we can find this kind of put together shack near the railroad, and there's a Novac settler doing something on the workbench. Now, at the very end of the street here, before you get to Old Lady Gibson's scrapyard, there is Nobark's shack. And we'll talk a lot more about Novac later in this video, and his house is very interesting. Obviously, it's booby-trapped. Novac is a bit crazy, and he has all of this pre-war propaganda inside of it. A lot of the propaganda being from the Great War era or part of the Enclave. And we'll talk more about Novac later and some of the theories surrounding his character. But his house is very interesting, and there's just a lot of kind of stuff littered around it. Now, if we head northwest, we can find a water tower that obviously used to serve Novac in the past. And if we go really far, we can find Old Lady Gibson's shack, or just Gibson's shack. This is an unmarked location. I've talked about this a lot in a previous video, and I will link it in the description below if you're curious about some of maybe Old Lady Gibson's dark secrets. Then, if we head to the west of Novac, there's actually a radio tower. And I never realized this was here until I just started exploring around the area. And up by this radio tower, we can find a wastelander who is very rude, so, you know, screw him. And there's also a campfire. Fun fact, this is the closest campfire to Novac, which is the only thing that might make the Novac house and the motel a little bit unattractive to some players. Kind of a hike to get to the campfire. But besides that, there's not a whole lot over here. Now, as you wander around Novac, eventually you'll notice Novac. And Novac is actually spying on the citizens of Novac, and he's considered a crazy lunatic because he just kind of spouts conspiracy theories. However, recently this player has gained a lot of popularity amongst Fallout fans because there is a lot of evidence that suggests he is the chosen one from Fallout 2. Now, in a Reddit post by Obinato, there is a lot of good points that he makes as to why he could be the chosen one. Some of them include the fact that in Novac, you can buy that gun, and there's a wrecked highwayman close to the city, both of which are references to Fallout 2. That gun is based on the 223 pistol in Fallout and Fallout 2 that many players refer to as that gun. And of course, the chosen one used a highwayman, and we have a wrecked highwayman near Novac. So there are a lot of reasons to believe he could be the chosen one, or he's just a crazed lunatic and it's all a coincidence. You can believe whatever you want, because Obsidian's never given any credence to this theory. And the last thing I want to mention is Boone. As I mentioned earlier with Manny Vargas, there are two snipers that protect Novac. One is Manny, and the other is Boone. Boone, of course, has a very famous side quest associated with him, One for My Baby. When you first talk to Boone, you will learn about his very tragic story, that his wife was stolen by Legion slavers and sold into slavery. Now, Boone accepts that his wife is dead, but he wants to find out who sold her or who betrayed him so he can have his revenge. He highly doubts that the Legion slavers were able to pull it off by themselves, and he is sure that someone in Novac helped him. He will task the player with finding that person. Of course, I already know it is Jeannie May because I played through this game so many times, but if you do some investigating, you can find out. And for the evidence inside of the motel, there is an easy locked safe. You can pick it open and take the bill of sale, which is just a sales receipt from the Legion. A pretty stupid thing for her to keep around, but maybe she kept it because she was scared of the Legion. Anyways, we just head to her house, wake her up, and we tell her that we need to go in front of the dinosaur because there is something she has to see. And as Boone instructs us, we will put on the red beret, and this indicates that this is the person he needs to kill. We walk Miss May Crawford, I guess her last name is Crawford, out to the front of the dinosaur, and Boone is an excellent shot. After that, we can go talk to Boone, and we can show him the evidence to just confirm that he killed the right person. He really trusts a complete stranger to find the right person, but hey, we're a good person, so we did the right thing. But it is possible to frame several of the Novac townsfolk, including Alice McBride, Dusty McBride, Cliff Briscoe, Manny Vargas, Ranger Andy, or even Novac. All of them will be shot dead by Boone, but upon telling Boone that you just had a hunch about these people, he will become incredibly angry at you, and he can no longer be recruited as a companion. You have to kill the right person in order to get Boone as a companion, and for me, this was the last companion I needed to recruit in my playthrough of Fallout New Vegas, and I am quite happy because Boone is an absolute badass. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unexplored Mojave. If you guys have any recommendations for a future location or a future video, please post them in the comment section below, and as always, until next time.